Sony pays Indebt artists.
Planning for pandemics.
And do charts really matter?
You're listening to
The Biztape.
Welcome to episode 38 of The Biztape, your all things music, business, and media podcast. I am your host, Joe, with my co-host, Colin. Colin, what's up?
Nothing much, man. It's weird being this way now because I feel like I'm like performing.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I feel like it's good. It'll get us kind of like...
Yeah, that'll
out
be
of our
good.
element a little bit.
There's going to be a juggling bit in the middle of the show for the video users only.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. If we start a Patreon, we'll just do different tiers of your juggling skills.
Oh, God.
And then you'll have to do different objects.
Yeah, it's like, here, I've grown enough to throw in the chainsaw. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Anyway, Joe, yeah, it's good to be back. Got some new digs, and there's a bunch of stuff going on.
I'm digging this outfit.
I know. Our audio listeners love us. Anyway, if you want to be part of the video folk, Biztape Podcast at YouTube. Biztape Podcast at YouTube, yeah. And then Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Biztape, and email the biztapepodcast@gmail.com with all your fun little bits. Love talking to y'all.
Yeah, Colin's been killing it on Instagram, just getting those polls.
Yeah, and that will come into play in this first story. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about charts.
Ooh, the most favorite thing all music business professionals
charts
love.
are interesting, right? Because charts are used to base like success, quote unquote.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you base success. So I saw an article about them talking about when SoundScan was introduced in 1991, which if you're nerdy about charts like I am, a lot of the time that's like where most records will like kind of date it. They'll be like post 1991, all these, you know, crazy record breaking moments happen because it used to work really weird. So I thought I'd talk about it a little bit and then we'd open it up into more conversation. So basically, if you don't know, SoundScan is the primary company. Now they're called MRC, and they collect music data basically on sales. So streaming now, but also physicals. So at the time in 1991, they had this huge system of like weird things going on with chart. Like Billboard used to do this weird, like they described it as Heisman-esque voting system where almost like they would take this information from mom and pop stores and like huge stores like a Walmart, for instance, and then based on that, like different songs and albums would get different like points, basically. Almost.
So is it kind of like a survey?
Yeah, and so they would have to self-report on that, and there was a whole thing about them saying like, oh, we did this, and they really didn't, and stuff like that. Or there was also issues with weighting because it was like a weighted system. It wasn't very number analytical based. So sometimes mom and pop stores compared to like a Walmart, for instance, it would come to stand that Walmart would have thousands upon thousands of, you know, sales compared to like a one mom and pop store.
Yeah.
And so you think it would be like, oh, they're weighted thousands upon thousands of times more. They were not. They were like 3 to 4 times more. So like the charts used to be wacky back in 1991 and nobody knew it, which is kind of going to go into our first thing about this is that charts are, we talked about a little bit of this off mic, charts are kind of like how the law works where it's illegal if somebody says it's illegal. So it's like charts are like, it's popular because the charts defined it as popular, right?
Yeah.
So in 1991, when they introduced SoundScan, which SoundScan, the most notable thing with it is that it created a system of barcodes. So computers could analytically go, oh, they scanned this across here and register the sale without human input. The charts went nuts. People were going up, people were going down. And one of the most notable things that people noticed was that all these albums and all these genres were profitable, where people were like, you don't make money on that.
Yeah.
Notable ones such as country music, rap music, hip hop music, get really topical, New Jack Swing in 1991, or 1991. And then it was crazy. Metal also had astronomical gains on the chart, but then vice versa. There were charts just like hitting down so far. These songs would be like number 23 and they go to number 97. Some like notable examples, which I Joe's going to find hilarious because of how different sides of the world this is. Garth Brooks' Roping on the Wind went to number 1 on the albums chart, which people were like, what? A country album went to number 1?
Yeah.
Because that was unheard of. Then this is also, if you're a big country fan, where 90s country music comes into play and becomes the behemoth. These charts help that happen. Same time, completely different side of the world. Basically, we had NWA with their second album. Yeah, Garth Brooks and NWA, the most, two peas in a pod group. They debuted at number 2 on the album chart, and they didn't even have a number 1 single in the Hot 100 at all, which was crazy at the time because that used to be the only way to be number 1, to give you a sense of how weird and skewed it was. So, as Joe and I had talked about on our Instagram, I asked people, I said, do you feel charts accurately portray like consumer opinion? Like what's
popularity.
Popular? So, Joe, I'm going to open up to you. Do you think that charts are accurately portraying what is popular?
I think it's hard to say.
So first off, it's really easy math to understand charts. So, no.
But it is hard to say because these charts are obviously, as we've seen, they have been skewed towards certain aspects of what is considered a sale, what's considered popular, that kind of stuff. I think in the grand scheme of popularity nowadays, I don't think they do accurately display it a lot of the times because people can get a shit ton of streams and they maybe are on the top 10. They should be number 1 because of how many streams they've gotten, right? It's like a Drake album or something. Right. It's like insane numbers the first week. But if someone manages to do more physical sales than the stream numbers, which is way easier to do, I guess it's way easier to inflate the numbers that way, right?
Because streams you have to use, have to use what are called a track equivalent albums and stream equivalent albums and stuff. And so you have to stream a song multiple times to necessitate what one album sale is. But also, I kind of want to counter that a little bit because I feel like at the same time they do inflate. Yeah, they do work. And we talked about maybe, I don't know, probably in November, I think, when Billboard changed their rules with merch, which Billboard charts are industry standard charts. That's what most people will look at. And Billboard did a huge thing where, and we talked about this, if it accurately portrays opinion there.
Yeah, where they stopped bundles. So album bundles, and what artists would potentially do, such as like Taylor Swift, would be like, hey, I have an arena show, you bought a ticket, but guess what? Because you bought a ticket, you also bought my album. And then that would count into the record sale. Yeah. And it would inflate numbers. And a lot of big artists were doing this. And like you said, Billboard did change the rules in that regard where you had to
show that it was extra money that was being added for an album. So like in this case, usually why I said merch is usually merch was a huge factor in charts. Mm-hmm. So people like Ariana Grande were getting huge chart boosts because basically they would go, you get Ariana's shirt in the album.
Yep.
And people in marketing and managers would literally just eat the cost of CDs. Mm-hmm. Because they want that number 1 spot, which I actually want to butt in before I go to our next kind of question about this. Joe, you were with most of our fans over on Instagram. 58% of them said no, charts do not accurately portray what is popular to the public.
Yeah, I don't, because I think charts, especially the music industry charts, can be easily skewed because they have been skewed for so long.
So I see that.
And I would like it to where it's not as skewed.
So I feel like it's almost like going back to my law example is kind of like, it's a very delicate system at play. And it's almost like the law where it's like, if you start messing with it too fast, people start going crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say with that is, I don't know necessarily what the solution to try to make it more fair, quote unquote, or more accurate. Let's go with accurate to public opinion. And so that's kind of the other question is, do we think artists and just people in general should rely more on trying to gauge, oh, this is a popular thing based on more specific charts? So let's say a hot country chart versus, Hot 100.
Yeah.
Because
or
it's
like the
extremely
viral, or like top 10 viral or
right.
something like that.
So like, do we feel like that's more accurate because it's compared to its peers, quote unquote, as opposed to everything in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another. I'm going to kind of take the middle of the road again with that, because I think it's different depending on each chart, right? Like the
Right.
qualifications of each chart is different.
Yeah, there's a bunch of garbage charts if you guys don't know about that, where you're like, what the hell is this chart?
And that's another thing. A lot of the charts are created for a PR boost. You know, in my opinion, I think some of the charts shouldn't even exist because there's just so many like random, very, very obscure charts.
You feel like it's devaluing the aspect of being on a chart, which I hold that opinion.
Yeah, I do, honestly.
How many, here's a question for listeners, but also Joe. How many people do you know that say like, I'm on the chart, and they kind of extrapolate what that means? So what I mean by that is they go, we're on the chart, and they don't specify what chart it is. So I think this is very important. A lot of people will do this, and they'll go, we're number 4 on the chart. And then you go look on it and you're like, well, you're on your genre specific chart.
Yeah.
You're not number 4. So I always get on people for that, because I feel like it's a, misrepresentation to people. But also going into that shows how valuable this chart data is. So being on the chart is almost as valuable as having as much sales that the chart necessitates to be at that spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Grammys that we talked about before, whether or not the Grammys' job is to take the popular songs or the popular, people and make them the winners. It's kind of the same thing, except this is a lot more numbers heavy than I feel like the Grammys are.
I also feel like the point of these charts compared to the Grammys is innately to show public and consumer habits.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I would differentiate it from the Grammys, because I feel like you can get into the Grammys argument, and we've talked about it before, is saying that the Grammys are to showcase artistically, like from a critic perspective, what we think is the best based on people who have very trained ears or in the industry, but also public opinion is a little bit, it's more of a mixture. But I feel like charts are innately supposed to be, the general public, everybody everywhere believes this opinion. And so it's supposed to be almost more transparent in that way, I feel like.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Grammys, where it's like, well, these critics or whatever, they believed it and they're accredited, quote unquote, so it's in this weird middle ground with it, which I think is really interesting. And so do we think that the music industry should put this much emphasis on charts?
I think it depends what part of the music industry you're in, to be honest, because each, if you go to a metal band, they don't give a shit about the charts, right? But a country act does care about the charts.
Right. But this is where I'm going into, and I feel like it's a very fine line. If you say, and it kind of goes into being the king of your castle as opposed to being king of the world. Mm-hmm. So it's like, do you want to be on top of this small hill, right? And small in reference to what I'm going to grow into. So like, let's say the world stage of music, being a popular person, is the world, the giant example, the macro in this.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the micro, like the king of the castle of the metal genre, let's say, and you're on the top of the metal charts? You know
then
what I mean?
I mean, it doesn't hurt.
It does not hurt. And
it doesn't hurt, but
I don't think it has really a negative, I guess, unless you're
but fans
a band.
don't care. Like
right.
Metal fans aren't going to care about metal charts.
That's a good point. It is genre specific. I have seen, especially since we live in Nashville, people in Nashville really care about that hot country.
Oh, absolutely,
chart.
They do. Yeah.
And so this is where I get a lot of my misrepresenting examples, is these people, I'm number 6 on the chart, and you're like, you can't just say that. You have to clarify. And like, some of them are more egregious. Like, at least sometimes I can be like, you're a country artist, you're going to be on the country chart. I can get that information. I can understand based on what your position is and what you do. But some of them are more obscure charts, and they'll be like, we're number 3. And I'm like, you can't just say that. That's really irresponsible, in my opinion.
Shoegaze country chart.
Yeah. And my old joke that I usually tell Joe is, and I use it as a motto for life, is if the award has more adjectives, it's a worse award.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
Joe, you are the best podcaster I had a brown table in this apartment named Joe.
Wow. I'm
Right.
honored.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, that's an example of what I'm talking about, is the more adjectives you put on it, the smaller thing. Now, I think there's a balance of that argument, going back to my thing of being, king of your castle, king of the micro. If you're, number one on the country chart or number one on the metal chart or electronic chart, it's like, hell yeah. You know what I mean? That's a big deal. But when people try to, I don't like when people try to escape it and I feel like in the public zeitgeist, it isn't really easy for people to understand that there's a bunch of charts. That's why they call it the chart a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's very irresponsible to go on that route. It's always like
the Billboard chart, right?
Right.
They're like, I made the Billboard chart. And then you go on Billboard's site and the Billboard has like 300 charts. But I think what we're missing, I guess, that we haven't talked about yet, is how its implication is for artists in artist deals, because that is a huge...
It's leverage.
It's leverage, and it also helps a lot with, any kind of publicity that an artist wants to do, any PR stuff.
Do you feel... here's a quick one. Do you feel like people should, if you're like a label or a manager or something, you're trying to sign somebody over to one of those deals, do you feel like you care more about their social media or do you care more about their charting?
I think that if I would, well, how big of a label am I?
Obviously, that's also a thing. Let's say you work for the big three. Let's say like you are at a Sony or Warner or a Universal.
I would be more worried about their socials because I can make them on the chart.
You can make them on the chart with your thing. But maybe if you were a smaller, indie kind of label, you are like, I don't really necessarily have all of the connections to make you high in the chart. So thank God you're already there. We can hopefully do that. But I have like 50 digital marketers who all work here. So we can handle your social media.
That's a pretty big indie.
I'm sorry.
I would say,
I guess if you,
even on that point, indie labels I've noticed too are picky too. Like I think labels right now in general are just very picky because they have to just have numbers on every level. Especially
in, as we're going to our next topic with the pandemic in this investment period.
Yeah.
Everyone, in 2020, I love that. 2020 there wasn't anything going on. Our business was doing great. We just chose to invest.
Yeah. It was an investment year. We took a conscious decision to step back and just really look inward. Colin?
It's like somebody who's like, we chose to move out of my parents' house. I wasn't kicked out. We chose that.
And really close to home.
Sorry, no offense to anyone listening. But,
so, our second point, as Colin has beautifully transitioned us into, planning for pandemics. So, many leading scientists and experts have stated that COVID is not a surprising occurrence as ecosystems shift with climate change, allowing for there to be a more innate risk of future viruses to disrupt the world and its economies.
Do you have any more fun facts for those?
Yeah, I know. It's so really light stuff, right? So we've seen how this past year and a half has completely demolished the music industry. And as people in the music industry scrambled to get back into the swing, it makes you wonder, could we have handled this better? And will we plan for the next one? So there's a couple things that we need to look into. So first, let's analyze the industry's reaction during the pandemic. And these are kind of the four big things that we saw during the pandemic. So tour dates being canceled.
Okay.
Industry professionals being fired as many businesses liquidate and conserve money. Artists and their teams trying to figure out how to make money on the internet or even promote. And venues suffering as the pandemic is continuously drawn out and unable to receive federal aid or even charity aid in time. So there's about a million other things.
Right.
But Colin, do you think that the music industry will plan for the next pandemic? And if so, what kinds of things do you think would be important for the industry to focus on?
So can I go down your points of okay. So tour dates being canceled. I definitely think that will be planned for in the future. I think there will be more contingencies in terms of service, especially when it comes to tickets and refunding. Mm-hmm. I feel like, not to be like bad big business, but I feel like a lot of businesses got in a chokehold of being like, if we don't refund these people's tickets, they are going to crucify us into the ground.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I could see a giant company like a Ticketmaster or an Eventbrite being like, just quietly writing in the terms of service, if this happens, then we get to keep the ticket money. Sorry,
Yeah. And
so
then
like,
you just click the check mark.
right, I could totally see that, or some sort of thing where it's like, it probably wouldn't be that egregious. It would probably be more like, after 30 days, if it cannot be open due to government regulate, you know what I mean, or something more legalese. So I feel like that'll be it. Industry professionals being fired, or I will also add furloughed from many businesses. I feel like, in my personal experience, I was furloughed from my job with audio and stuff like that because I worked in touring. So I had a very good experience with that. They were very supportive. They worked with me. That's not everybody's case.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we have not hit the repercussions of that. And I've talked about this on the show a lot, is touring and touring professionals and the ability for that clientele to come back. We have not hit the apex where I think we're getting to the point, especially now, where these tours and shows, that are all these arenas are booked up, like we're going to talk about. But we haven't got to the point where it's like, oh shit, this thing's in 3 weeks. We need somebody to mix. Well, all your mixers have been gone. They got a different job. They did this. They've been gone for a year. You're going to have to get somebody who's a little bit more not as experienced, and that might suffer for customers and stuff like that. I feel like if you see that happen, a lot of businesses are going to, pony up and understand that. Then we got artists and their teams trying to figure out how to make money on the internet or even promote. That definitely has completely changed. People are coming up with revenue streams that they had no idea before. And I would also like to add, I feel like everyone says that, but I would also like to importantly add, people are remembering and noting income streams that they should have paid attention from this entire time.
Yeah, like what they should have been focusing on before.
Right,
Pandemic.
or at least had like some form of handle. I mean, we had our buddy Zach Green from CSAC on here, and we're talking about PROs and all these people basically coming up going, where's my PRO money? I heard there's this magic PRO money. Well, it looks like you should have been keeping up with that for a while, because it could be in a black box somewhere where, or something like that. And so we've seen that. And then on the new front, we've seen, Patreon is, catapulted a lot of artists up. Live streaming in general, the idea of I could not imagine pointing to someone in 2019 and going, hey, you should just do like a live stream set. They'd be like, why could I
like, I'd be making more money playing Broadway, know?
Yeah, exactly. And so like, what's the point? And then last is venues suffering as the pandemic is continuously drawn out and not receiving federal aid. I think personally, this is probably the biggest one we will not learn from. Yeah. I think there are a lot of venues, especially with how this federal aid money has gone through, that will die, that will be closed, and we will just forget that happened, and people will just get new jobs, and they will go to either a different industry, or they'll collapse into different venues, or they'll start their own venues. But I don't think the general public or the government has really taken aback to the impact that it has happened. Like, obviously it's like we're all suffering, but like specifically on venues, I feel like the general public hasn't really been like, oh yeah, if your job is to attract people every day of your life, the pandemic and future viruses are going to really mess that up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's probably out of your 4 points here. I think that's the one that is going to go down the drain.
I agree. I think it also, venues are definitely taking note after this year of like, you know what? It's one of those things where the arts is always underfunded. Right. It's always the last thing to get funded. And to come up with a way in order to leverage to get federal aid money in the future, I think is imperative. But I agree with you. I honestly think the industry is going to forget this happened to a certain extent, especially if it's getting insane buzz and if things go back to normal and we start having like very, very high earning years.
Right.
I think that, the industry does that all the time. We have like these huge high earning years, and then they have a disruptor come in and they go, well, shit, it's the disruptor's fault
Right.
that I'm fucked up right now.
I kind of agree with that, and I kind of don't. I think we've seen.
I think in this case, this was out of
it
anybody's
seems like
control.
for a lot of it seems like for a lot of people, it's more of like this happened.
But it's something that we need to learn from.
Right. And so like I completely agree is people have this mentality of this happened, now it's over. You know what I mean? It's like this was like a 1917 bird flu. And now 100 years from now, maybe we'll have another one that's that bad or something.
Yeah.
So like
it's very specific.
that's the last really big pandemic I feel like that hit America on a wide scale. So that's what I was saying.
Huh.
And so
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not know.
Fun. But we also teach social studies here at
Yeah.
the Biztape.
But I guess going on of how the music industry now is coping with the pandemic, there's something that's very interesting. So we've all seen a bunch of, concerts happening in our towns. We've all seen venues booked up, sold out. You might even see some people announcing their tours. But guess what? Their arenas are all booked up.
Yay.
So as more and more shows begin happening, arenas are in an awkward position as a traffic jam of artists have begun attempting to book more shows than the arenas can handle, making tour planning more difficult than it has been in previous years. So acts who have pushed dates out to next year are wanting slots before 2021 is up because they're seeing everybody is selling out their shows and making a bunch of money. And even setting some records. So they're trying their best to just grab those dates and like push them up a little bit farther. You know, they'll take a pay cut, right, to get that date up higher. But many talent agents are having trouble also navigating COVID protocols depending on each state in their tours. So right now, as a talent agent, you have this specific region. You have the northeastern region, right, that you're booking your talent for.
Right.
And you have to call up all these arenas, and your artist decided, hey, we're going to just book them for 2021. That's going to be it. And you got to come and you got to be like, hey man, he wants to do it this year. Here's kind of our deal points. We're going to change, I don't know, we'll drop our advance to this amount of money or something if you can get us in this slot. And we think we can sell out your show. Well, the venue has the awkward thing of saying, well, tough luck, buddy, because I got like 30 other people in front of you. So there's nothing much I can do for you.
Right.
And
would you like a Thursday night?
Yeah.
Like,
would you like a Tuesday afternoon?
Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah. But this is also because this I guess traffic jam is also caused because many artists under Live Nation and AEG are expecting to go on tour and are even getting restless because like AEG and Live Nation can't book them.
Right.
So there's all these artists that have these deals with these companies that are just like, why the fuck aren't I getting like booked on my tour? Like touring is happening now.
Right. You have my exclusive right for this. So.
Yeah. And the promoters have to be like, dude, we can't. Like, there's no way we can do it. Yeah. And then some artists have even seen the trend and decided to hold off a bit before announcing tours due to the traffic. So they don't have to backtrack. So it's going to be really awkward if you come out and you say, hey guys, guess what?
We're doing
a national tour. It's going to be awesome. Here are the ticket links. Then next week you're like, hey guys, guess what? We 8 out of those 10 dates that we decided to do,
gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
Right.
I couldn't get them booked.
So here's my thing with it. There is a interesting thing that is happening here, and it has to do with in my opinion, how album cycles work. When COVID started, everyone and their mother and their manager said, "You go and make an album," and guess what they did? They made that album, and they either released it during the pandemic or they saved it.
I see where you're going with this.
Now, what do you do? What is the point of an album? It is to do live shows.
It's
now
to tour.
Yes, it is. That's where your money is. So all of these people now have this, and we'll get into recoupable money later, which will be fun, but have this money sometimes from labels that they need to pay back, or people they need to actively pay back, like their producers or session musicians. And they need that money, and they need to get on the tour, and they want to, I can see you're trying to alliterate here, is hit that huge wave of demand. Because like we've kind of theorized, and I think people are getting more into this mindset, everyone and their mother is going to be like, I want to go to a concert for about some period of time. If you can guess it correctly, you're going to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
But that period of time will not last forever. It almost reminds me of how, like, you see pictures of, like, going back to our social studies. Thank you for our educators here. Is like after World War II, where you see like the pictures of people in New York kissing each other. That didn't happen for 10 years. That happened for a period of time, for a couple months. Everyone was happy, you know, and then it waned. And so I feel like in the same way with this COVID stuff and opening up, and as everything gets more opened up and more vaccines, people are hoping they hit this wave, because not only can they, you know, be recouped if they owe money, they can make a lot of money.
Oh yeah. Especially artists who are smaller. I mean, we've seen smaller artists in Nashville getting sold out shows that might otherwise have not been sold out.
Well, you know, and the funny part is that there's a plethora of venues that exist that have totally not gone under, that can handle the infrastructure of this.
Which is another thing, because, you know, if you can't get your arena show, you're going to go to the next best thing, which is a higher, bigger capacity club or amphitheater.
You hope
that might not be around anymore.
Right. And you hope that you can go down and go, hey, I'm a bigger person. Can you knock this down to your lower venue? Like, if I trade with this guy, will you give them the lower venue? Oh, sorry, the lower venue is also booked, so you can't do that either. So, like, it doesn't work that way. And so it's real rough. So this is going to be... I literally, if you did not pick up the phone fast enough, there literally sometimes days in between each other, you could be jeopardizing having a 2021 tour if you're a huge artist like that, because of the logistics of it too. The bigger you get, the more time and planning you need.
Yep.
So it's even worse.
Yeah, I mean, talent agents really, they like what they do is they book these tours. Usually in a normal market, they'll book the tours like a year out, usually. Like a year to 6 months is kind of the range. And now they've had to play a gambling game where it's like, I'm putting all my money on red.
Oh, and then people have also already lost this game. There have been people who did this in July of last year. They said, we're putting all our money on red. And they go, because COVID's going to go away because it's the summertime. Mm-hmm. And they saw their colleagues lose.
Yep.
So they're, in this pickle where it's like, I think it's really back, guys. I think we're in it. I think we can do it. But it's also really scary and super competitive. So I'm afraid who's going to get burned in this situation. I don't think it's going to be the arenas.
No, I think the arenas are just fine. But Colin, what about Sony Music and royalties?
What
are we going to learn
about
about
it
today?
Okay, so I found this very interesting thing. Sony wants to basically forgive people who are unrecouped, which I'll get into a moment. Basically, unrecouped is where you owe money to your label. Usually, back in the day, it was for your Van Halen. You made $1 million record. Well, you owe Sony $1 million because you didn't have $1 million in pocket to pay everything and all the studio costs. Mm-hmm. So when you go out and sell albums, guess who gets the money first? Sony does, until you're recouped.
Yep.
And that's how historically it's worked. And obviously, it's gotten worse as time has gotten by, because with the collapse of how physical mediums are sold and all that stuff, they were like, okay, we'll take merch, we'll take your ticket sales, we'll take funding your tour. So it's gotten really, really, really rough. But a lot of these older artists were familiar with a mindset that was like, oh, we'll give you $900,000 to do your studio album, your first album. No, that doesn't happen anymore. So some of these people are super unrecouped, which means you owe money and they will not give you any money until then. Until Sony recently sent a letter, like it's like, oh, everybody, let's mail it.
No, stamped.
Yeah, right. Email. It's called a letter, but I think it was through email. So the label will no longer apply existing unrecouped balances to earnings for eligible artists signed prior to the year 2000 who have not received advances since 2000. It applies, this is the nuts part to me, retroactively to January 1st, 2021. The new real-time advance feature allows artists to receive instant advances on projected future earnings as well. And this is available in the US and UK. So you can go into the future, basically. They would like, we think you're going to make $4,000. Okay, I'll take the money now. Nuts. That's just nuts that they allow to do that.
Like in 8 years from now?
I don't know how far the feature is. They only said, I think they were like announcing this feature's existence. And I feel like they're going to roll it out slowly. It'll probably be like in a beta or something to some people. They can also use an existing cash out feature to request a withdrawal of all or part of their payable balance each month as soon as it becomes available with no fees or charges. So like you can cash out, you can get your money directly through Sony.
Yeah.
You don't have to do some stupid, the check's coming, this is all. No, you can just get it, which is nuts.
Yeah. So just to explain this again.
Yeah.
This is recoupable money, correct? Or is this...
So this is actually still, if you're unrecouped, you could do this.
Okay.
So if you owed money to Sony, you could use this advance feature to get future advances and also cash out and get the money directly to you. But you also, if you're recouped, I'm sure you can use these real advance. I'm sure they're more like, recoup people, please use this because, we know
want
that
you to
you
owe
make
us
money.
more money.
Right. We know you make money. So we would love for you to have a great experience with Sony.
We know you make money and we want to make more
Which
money.
Sony stated this was, quote, to be a true partner of the artist, supporting them in all stages of their career.
Interesting.
Except, when they're post 2001, then you are not supported.
Yeah.
That must have been a rough sell.
Yeah.
Hey, we signed you in 2001. So good luck out there. You still owe us money. Joe, this is nuts to me. First off, do we think, let's go on the base. Do you think a recoup system is fair in the first place in terms of owing the label money? And I'll say fair to artists, just so you have an easier thing.
I think, it's hard. It's another hard one.
It depends on the situation.
It depends on the situation. I would say that I have seen a lot of unfair recoupable things.
Okay, I'll give you an example of this. If you, this is a good watch. If you haven't, YouTube has a documentary about NSYNC, and the guy who ran NSYNC ran them dry, basically, because he recouped everything. He used to go, hey, we're going out to dinner tonight to like a Manhattan steakhouse. Everybody in their families is going out, and they would say that's recoupable. He would pay for the whole thing. He wouldn't tell them.
Just cold, man.
Yeah, and then they gave him a check for like $14 or something after working for like a year selling out stadiums. That's how bad recoupable can be.
Yeah.
Recoupable can also be, way less so. At the end of the day,
well, if you're a smaller artist, generally you're not going to get a huge like $1 million recoupable amount.
Yeah, the days of those are kind of gone.
Well, this is the thing that I think the industry itself just has a problem with. It's a gambling game.
It is,
right? Of like whether you're going to be successful or not. And this particular feature sounds, I'm a little weird about it because it sounds a lot like, they're going to get these little artists to come up and they're going to be like, kid, you're going to be great. You're going to be awesome, kid. You're going to make $1 million. And you know what? We'll go ahead and give you $1 million advance because I know you're going to make it in like 20 years in the future.
Oh, man.
And then, guy doesn't make $1 million. In fact, he barely makes 3,000, but now he is indebted for $1 million.
Well, we hope that this happened in 1999 and not 2001, but like for Sony artists, but like basically, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it was. It's nuts to think about back in the day if you were like an Ahmet Erdogan or something and you would go up, or like one of those older record label executives and go, here's $600,000, do a first album. Are you kidding me? No, nobody does that as much anymore. I mean, it happens. I've seen it.
Albums are so cheap to make now.
Right. The cost has gone down. But what I think is interesting about this specifically is I think this is a tactic to, one, differentiate themselves from bigger three. So to have your catalog maybe represented by Sony and have also your artists have an incentive to be active in their marketing.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge deal because consumers are extremely smart. And so when you have, artists, especially who are older and who are like legacy artists who are huge deals, but they go, I hate my fucking record company. Don't buy anything. You know what I mean? Or something like that. It's like, here, buy this CD that I made, my new CD or something. That can be a detractor from their business model. And there's no incentive for some of these older artists to do it, because if you're so much in money, in debt, like, there's no way you're getting out of that hole. You know what I mean? You'll never, like, I could go on a whole campaign of going across the country and promoting, my old material and playing shows for my old material and stuff like that, and hoping I get more record sales and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm still unrecouped. It's like that much money sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's, in my opinion, I think that's the strategy here is how do you motivate a salesman? You have to give him a commission. And this is kind of what I feel like it is. It's like, here's your commission. We'll just forgive this for now. You can get some advances. If you want to come with us and our publicity team, we'll get you on Good Morning America, for your greatest hits album, and you'll actually make money on it. That's kind of what I think this is for.
Yeah.
That's my theory. Maybe somebody's going to come in here and have some crazy other theory. Do you think this could be a sweeping change, maybe the other big three, maybe like a Warner, Universal, or an edge up for Sony?
I think it's definitely an edge up. I think historically, I guess not historically, but I guess lately, I would say Sony does a better job of the numbers game,
right,
when it comes to paying artists or recouping money from artists. So depending on which edge you're on there.
And that's valuable for the marketing, like I was saying, but that's also valuable as like a sentiment to younger people you're signing.
Yeah,
is being
exactly.
Like, we actually do care.
We're the hip label.
Right.
In comparison to the other ones. Yeah.
Right.
So it's, I think it's definitely a leg up, but I would I would caution anybody going, I can't wait to get my check.
Right. I can't wait to be like, I need $900,000 to live a year. Can you give me a $900,000 advance?
Because if when in doubt, it's recouped. It's recoupable.
And at the end of the day, I feel like answering the question if it's fair, it's definitely a system that can be completely abused. But, if you went to a bank and you were like, give me a $600,000 loan to do an album, they would either laugh you out of the building or you would owe the craziest interest rate of your life.
Yeah.
And so for some artists who want this grand vision or something like that, it's kind of worth going in here because it's almost like, and people may be disgusted to hear it like this, it's almost like your label is your creditor, but they're way more friendly than the people down there at the Bank of America.
Yeah, they're not going to laugh you out of the building.
Right, exactly.
Unless your music sucks, but...
I mean, it could. But who knows? I think it definitely... I think this gives Sony a leg up in terms of future artists. If the real-time advance feature can also be used with, current catalog, that would also be huge.
Yeah.
And then the cash out feature is also huge, especially if it's like, you don't have to wait every quarter or 90 days or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That could be huge. So we'll have to see what happens with that. It's not like Sony doesn't have, I don't know, a multi-million-dollar company that it is under technically. But
yeah, I think Sony's going to be just fine.
I think they'll be fine. We'll see what happens with that. Joe, what have you been listening to?
Well, Colin, I've been listening to... Damn it.
I left my... we're both not prepared. We did what we do to our guests.
Oh, man.
I left my phone over there, but I can go
Can you manifest?
Can I manifest? Yeah, I'm pulling it up on this MacBook that won't go slower.
I've been listening to a lot of Kid Bloom lately. His song Control, his newest single, as well as his single Hold On, which I think I talked about on another episode, but it's just so good and catchy that I continue to listen to it. And you'll love me for this, Colin.
Oh, God.
I have been
I don't like
in
that
a
intro.
deep vaporwave hole.
Yes.
And I love vaporwave.
I really loved vaporwave when it was big, and I still listen to vaporwave every once in a while. I'm not that it's almost like vaporwave became like how emo was, where I'm not super like into the some people are gonna think I'm talking like a different language. I'm not in that Simpsons vaporwave hole where like everyone's really depressed and they're like contemplating life in the comments about
there's
like
some
what's
people
the
that are like,
existence of capitalism versus like, you know, life existence. And it's like, whoa, I'm like 6 steps back from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, our boy Frank Ocean.
Oh yes.
If he'll please come out with an album or something, please. We need it.
It's Joe's plea.
Yeah.
I talked about last week. I was listening to Inside from Bo Burnham. He put it on streaming. I've been listening to that pretty constantly. But I also have been listening to, here's random Colin back in time albums. I've been listening to Bobby Brown, Don't Be Cruel.
Hell yeah.
From, I believe, I got to look up the year right now. It's from 1988.
Amazing. This album cover.
Okay,
amazing,
yeah. If you want to look
way.
up the album cover, you really, this man is pinnacle style.
He's got that head
So
tilt.
first off, one of the reasons I mentioned New Jack Swing in the episode is because that Bobby Brown, who is from my other favorite band, New Edition, is a pioneer in the genre known as New Jack Swing. New Jack Swing has a very particular sound, and I would say it's derivative from like hip hop and like rap, but it has like kind of this weird, almost like slow jam kind of vibe to it at the same time. You guys may know this album because of there's a couple songs, my Prerogative and Every Little Step. Most people know like Every Little Step if you're gonna know any of these songs, but it's got this like strange mixture of the both, and like the performance is great and it's so catchy. It also has, disclaimer, it has every demo instrument that's on like a default child's piano on it. So I'm just, this is the album where like every weird sound you listen to, like when you first get a keyboard and you're like, FM synth. That's where this album like sounds like, which makes it sound cool because it's like the top of its game as opposed to like you just fooling around.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really good. I really appreciate it. I literally have been listening to a couple of these songs one by one throughout my life, but not realizing they're all from the same album. I remember I performed the song Roni in college, and it was the weirdest thing. I played it for this class called Commercial Music Ensemble, and this guy, we basically back up singers. So this guy comes out to play Roni, and it's this very like sexual song. It's about like, you are my Roni. I don't even know what that means still.
Yeah, what?
But like, I think it's like the girl's name. But like, anyway, we did this performance of this guy who's fantastic. He sang it really well, and we get to the performance. We're like playing in this little concert hall thing, and he starts playing, and all of a sudden, this girl comes out from literally side stage with the boa on and starts doing basically mime choreography with him to the song. We had no idea. So I'm just like hitting the bass at the same time. And he's like singing this song to the girl really sensually with this boa on. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I literally, like, I love the recorded version, but I don't think anything will be as good as watching that guy literally tell no one that he was going to bring his girlfriend on the stage.
Oh, it was his girlfriend.
Maybe not that far, but definitely they had an entanglement.
Okay, gotcha. That sounds like you witnessed a historical event, Colin.
It was something. I don't know what it was. You would have to define it if you were there, but it was something.